This video is an attempt to explain how life on Earth is different than dead matter, by exhibiting life's core functions, and comparing them to other matter. It may not be a thorough examination, but it is intended to point out the basis of the answer to the question what functions lay behind life's complexion. This explanation of life has nothing to do with the theory of extraterrestrial life. It is a simple uneducated explanation of how life works, here on Earth. This video will not cover any data pertaining to the understanding of the conscious mind. How consciousness functions is a separate subject of psychology, which needs a whole different explanation outside of the comparison of life to matter. More importantly, this movie will not compare human intelligence to technological artificial replicas of consciousness, aka computers. That also is another subject that needs a long drawn-out explanation of its own. This explanation is only a comparison, and an analysis of what makes life, life. As individuals we cannot escape our self-existent perspective. We have to have some selfish tendencies, given the limited area of intelligence our minds have. We are trapped, and can only view the world through a set of eyes instead of having an entire omnipresent sight of the whole world itself. In saying this, we cannot simply conclude, in one statement, that all things out of the mind are dead. I cannot just look at something and conclude it is dead. If I was a rock, or a fish, or a flower, my conceptions of this world would be different. I will never fully understand the actual perception of another person, or thing, because I am me. In order to comprehend dead matter, we must first subconsciously compare what our life is to other materialistic things that exist. When we look at anything in this life, we tend to degrade it, or look at it as higher than self. My task in making this documentary is not to compare the mind to the universe, although I may stray from this way once or twice. My task at hand is to compare the mind to specific matter, and other earthly life. When I place a rock in my hand, I immediately degrade it to something less than I. How do I immediately know it is less than me and has less intelligence than I? Dead matter, why it lacks complexion. What is complexion? We must compare, in order to come to a conclusion. This is how the mind works at all times. If we say all things are equally complex, then a raindrop is equally complex to a cloud. Then a cloud is equally complex to a storm. This is not how it works. One pebble is not as complex as viewing all pebbles. Our minds comprehend a group as more vastly advanced than a single individual substance. When we compare a storm to a single cloud, we notice that there actually must be a higher complexity in the storm, rather than the cloud. Why must there be a higher complexity? Because instead of just vapor sitting there in the atmosphere, a storm is violent with many factors deeming its complexion. A numerous amount of factors in a certain area is what complexion should be considered as. Let us go back to the rock. The factors determining the rock's complexion are pretty simple. There is no heat to create thunder. There is no chemical composition that allows a rock to become a cloud. And an even more outstanding comparison is the rock is not as complex as the mind, and that is how the rock shall stay. What other signs hint to the lack of complexion established by comparison? The rock does not have the four essentials that make up life. Number 1, life needs to take in energy. Without consuming energy, none of us would function like we do now. Something cannot exist eternally, unless it has an eternal energy source. Thankfully we don't. Number 2, life creates waste, or emits energy once gained. We move, work, and even have fun, because we have gained energy. We think, because we have burned energy. We are energy that burns other energy. Number 3, life, or energy, responds to its environment. Even the rock in the backyard responds to its environment, as it must, and as it is meant to. For the rock is a rock, and it must sit and wait in a dead state for erosion to change its form, and wait for time to run its course. Unlike the rock, life can run around in the flower beds, sit and watch TV, and be entertained. For these reasons we are higher beings than rocks, or dead matter. Number 4, living things reproduce, and pass their traits on to their offspring. Dead matter is always destroyed or eroded, it never has enough energy to reproduce. It never reproduces, it only changes form. To compare human life to vegetation we must only look at the complexion of plants. In comparing rock to plants, the plants seem to be more advanced than rocks. Vegetation is tied down to its environment but substantially sustains the way nature works. Vegetation thrives and can reproduce, and also fundamentally changes form. Even so as the rock, it lacks advanced complexion. Plants do not sensibly create sound waves, they do not see the world with eyes. They depend on their beauty to attract their companion the bee, or wasp, etc., to pollinate and reproduce. Just as flowers, humans also depend on their beauty to attract mates and reproduce, but unlike the flower, humans pick their mates, they don't have creatures that pollinate for them. Unlike the rock, vegetation can change form by using reproduction, which is faster than erosion. For these reasons, among others not listed, plants are more complex than stones. Next on the list is animal life, which also changes in its environment. First, the host animal adapts on a microscopic level to its surroundings during its maturity, and then the changes it has gained on its journey are passed on to the host's offspring, through the cycle known as reproduction. As you will notice, humans are genuinely higher in intelligence than most animals, but as all things on Earth, and in the known universe, we change form. This is what makes evolution a possibility, here on Earth. The process of evolution takes something simple and makes it complex. To deny this theory is the same thing as denying the process of evaporation, which, like evolution, takes a vaguely simple raindrop and forms it into a cloud. To deny the process of evolution, or one of the ways the universe makes something simple complex, is the same thing as denying the progression of mind, from the simple mind of the baby to the advanced mind of the overeducated adult. On top of the environment chain, you will notice that human life depends on its environment more than any other earthly body. Human life gains entertainment, relaxation, exhaustion, pain, and love, among thousands of other things, by living within its environment. A flower gains the chance to be, and gives more than it receives. An animal gains the chance to live with its fixed genetic code, and makes nature stable. What we humans do, while we live, is up to us, and our own reasoning skills. We can choose to be Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, atheist, the list of choices just goes on. We can choose to be haters, lovers, criminals, or men of the law, friendly or secluded. Decisions, and their unknown outcomes, make life adventurous. Another form of life that cannot be excluded in this analysis is bacteria. If bacteria had the mind of a human, we would notice that all life on Earth that was this male would be very intelligent. To say the cat is less intelligent than a coexisting bacteria is insane. For the brain of the cat is 1,000,000 times more complex than a simple bacteria. If the bacteria was smarter than the cat, then the cat should be 1,000,000 times smarter than the bacteria because of its greater size, thereby complexion. Evolution is the mutation process that makes the simple advanced. There must exist the less complex and the more complex. Even so, we must remember that the less complex is what the context depend on. If we eliminate the theory of evolution from the universe, we no longer have a process to explain how life came to be. Without evolution, life just appeared, without a process.